Illinois!
Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of the Wrap-Up for Dan Myers. I'm Nick Buckler, and we got to jump right into it with some sad news in the Detroit sports world and across the entire sports world, that is. Former Pistons coach Flip Saunders has passed away at the age of 60 on Sunday. He was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma back on August the 11th, and it didn't take long. He died in Minneapolis. He was the current serving coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he passed away at a Minneapolis hospital, and it didn't take long for that disease to take his life, and he thought he was doing better, and then he had a little setback in September, and the rest is history. Saunders was the Pistons coach from 2005 to 2008. He led them to 3 consecutive Eastern Conference Finals, including a finals appearance in the NBA Finals in 2005. They lost in Game 7 in San Antonio to the Spurs, and that means he was the Eastern Conference All-Star coach in 2006 at the All-Star Game. This is a crushing blow.
Yeah, it is. Great coach. He's a great guy to be around. I know you were fortunate enough to be able to meet him, and it was just it's incredible how you never know how long you have, and just be appreciative for every moment you got. So yeah, definitely going to be missed in the sports world. Definitely one of those coaches.
Yeah, definitely. It's gut wrenching. I read that multiple times, and I didn't believe it at first. I knew he wasn't doing well, and then it was said he was doing better, and now obviously not so well. It's just it's a blow, and a lot of players across the NBA and the entire NBA is reached out saying to the family, just crushed. And it's tough if you lose a coach or anyone close. It's not fun. We're going to switch over to a little happier news. Co-host Dan Myers. It's the big birthday, the big 3-0 for Dan. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The world has been graced with your presence for 3 decades. You're in your, would this be considered your 4th decade now?
Something like that. Oh, gosh, yeah.
Well, hey.
Somebody said I spent, when you turned 30, you actually spend 30 days celebrating your birthday. So I was like, wow.
So today's day 2 of the birthday celebration for the Myers, the son of the Myers, the wealth, the financial back of Myers Superstore, Dan Myers.
Uncle Fred, always being there.
Freddie. Who else is there? Anyone? No, not for the Lions. No one is there. They drop another one. They are now 1-6 on the season. They lose 28-19 at the hands of the Purple Pansies, the Minnesota Football Vikings. Minnesota, hey, they might be for real now. Just 3 losses, and who knows? 4-3, I believe, is their record now. Could they be for real? I don't know, or just maybe the Lions are that bad. Stafford goes for 256 yards, 2 touchdowns. First game in a while, he has not thrown a pick, so good for him. Although he did have some x-rays on Sunday in his left hand. Hopefully those come back positive, so he won't play next game. But hey, beggars can't be choosers, right? Ebron and Calvin Johnson each with a touchdown catch in that game, and they go to London next week to play the Chiefs before the Week 9 bye week. What do you see coming up? Sorrow?
Yeah. Just in a different location, a different continent, country.
Hey,
so
we got to lose in every country in the world, so why not check Great Britain off and say, hey, here's to another Lions loss. I promise you one thing. They could win out, go 10-6. I will not drink the Kool-Aid. They're done. Done like dinner, and I blame the coaching staff.
Yeah.
Jim Caldwell is clueless. Joe Lombardi, the offensive coordinator, wanted to go up to the press box 4 weeks ago and call plays from up there to better see the field, less pressure, whatnot, and Caldwell said no. He said, I don't feel the time is right. When is the time going to be right? At the time, the team was 0-4. Mm-hmm. When's the time going to be right? They got to have a fire sale. If Martha Ford cares about this team, she's going to clean house, and you got to start up top with Mark Mayhew and Tom Lawan. They are products of Matt Millen, and then Jim Caldwell, it's clear he does not know how to manage a football game. He's a disaster. I think he has lost the room. And Joe Lombardi, 3rd and 13, they run a handoff in a close game. This is looking like the Lions of old. I'm sticking with same old Lions. It's brutal to watch.
Yeah, yes it is, and hopefully you will see something from the Fords. To save face. Unfortunately, with what's all going on, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. You touched on it just now that I really feel that Caldwell's lost the room. Ever since that Dallas game last year, and it just with that horrible call, and then with a bunch of other things happening and just him not sticking up for his team, it's easy to lose respect for a coach he hasn't been there that long. You guys really don't have that much of a relationship with. So when he doesn't have your back, why should they have his? I expect to see some big changes. But with this organization, you never know. So
Yeah, it's tough to say you expect these changes because I don't think I do. The Lions have been nitty-gritty at being bad for so long. They know how to be bad, and the fans are really what irritates me. They always find something to blame for why the Lions keep losing. Okay, last year the Lions, 8 of their wins were come from behind fourth quarter wins. If they don't win 5 of those, they only win 4 games. They think that they were so good last year when they really weren't. Their defense was obviously better, and they did minimal things to fill the holes. They lose Fairley, they lose Sue, and they bring in Haloti Ngata, who's an older, worse version of Ndamukong Suh. And they did nothing to help their secondary. They re-signed the corpse of Rashean Mathis. That guy's 1,000,000 years old. He gets burned left and right. Darius Slay claims he's the best corner in the world. Yeah, big play Slay. Yeah, he's giving up big plays. He's not the answer. Their safeties are big names, James Ahedibo and Glover Quinn. They're not doing anything back there. And obviously with the injury to DeAndre Levy, Stephen Tulloch has bigger shoes to fill. He came off an ACL tear. You have guys like Bynes and Diggs who are stepping up. Daryl Tapp and Kyle Van Noy played in like 3 games in his career. There's nobody there that can shut down an opposing team. And the defensive line has just struggled. Obviously, we know what the offensive line's done. Absolutely nothing. They can't block anything. It's sad. And it's to the point now where it's a comedy show. It's so bad to watch that I don't know anymore. I really don't.
Yeah, and it's almost got to the point where it's like, I'll turn in some other games, but I'm not going to waste my Sunday afternoon, watching the product that they throw on the field. It's ridiculous. But yeah, and it just, like you said, it starts with the upper management, the leftovers from Millen era. They got to really clean house, and we really got to get rid of the quarterback too. I mean, next year's gonna be Stafford's 8th year. He does show problems. He does have heart, but when the talent and stuff like that, it's not. 8's enough.
They surround Stafford with some great talent every year. He still has weapons this year. He doesn't use them. Part of that's on play calling. Part of that's offensive line. But it's all on the quarterback. I mean, he is terrible. For a 7-year veteran, you'd think maybe he'd have a better grasp. And last week, after the win against Chicago, they praised him in the locker room. Oh, Steph, great game. Here's a game ball. Oh, boys, yeah, I'm a leader. Okay, yeah, sure you are. Anyone could beat the Bears. They're the worst team ever, other than the Lions, obviously. Sure, it was an exciting game, but that was a horrible game back and forth. Both teams were dreadful. It was horrible to watch.
Yep.
And when you blow in leads, they just know how to lose. And the fans, I'm going to get back to my point from earlier, they blame the refs for everything. Oh, look at that false start. He didn't. No, okay. It should never get to the point where a call should decide a game. If you put the game in the refs' hands, it's on you because you should have never let it get that bad. And that's on the team. That's on the coaching. Moving on.
Yeah.
Michigan State pick up another win. It was tough. Indiana hung in there till the end of the third quarter, and then Michigan State pulled away 56-26 final. And fourth quarter was all Michigan State. They just take away, rushing touchdown. Connor Cook looked finally like he's getting into form that everyone thought he was going to be in. He really led that team in the fourth quarter. And a game that a lot of Michigan State fans were holding their breath like, are we really going to lose to Indiana right now? And you could tell the players were starting to get a little nervous. Mark D'Antonio on the sideline was getting tense, and then Connor Cook just took the game away and led the team, calmed them down. And that's really what you need to see from your senior quarterback. They move up in the rankings. They're back up now. They're still undefeated. And it brings up a point for me now. Iowa is undefeated. Mm-hmm. If they win out, could they and then win the national champion or the Big Ten championship game? Do they make the 4-team playoff? Sure, their schedule's a little powdery puff, but they're undefeated and they're in the Big Ten, and then they're going to have to beat an Ohio State most likely or Michigan State in the Big Ten championship game. They got to be in the top 4, and Iowa they really have overcome stuff, winning on the road, blowing out teams like Northwestern, and beating up on these teams who are top 20 schools. Is Iowa for real?
Yeah, really. Especially Michigan State's undefeated, but look at all the opportunities they had to lose. I mean, up until that, a couple weeks ago with that Michigan game, that they were getting handed their first loss. We'll go back to the week before where it was even closer. Well, not even closer, but there hasn't been solid wins where you really invest. That Michigan State's here and arrived, and they'll be ready to take on the big teams like the Alabamas and the OSUs. So I really don't feel that confident with them. And with Iowa, yeah, you said with a powdery puff schedule, but we'll see. I think Iowa deserves to be right up in there with MSU, just considering the fact that their losses haven't been, or their wins haven't been pretty. They're very close, in fact. So, but you know how this is. It's college football, and there's always going to be a group yelling at whoever decides where they go, the coaches poll or what have you. So we'll see how it goes, but I wouldn't hold your breath if you're an Iowa fan.
If they go undefeated and win the Big Ten championship, I say they make it for sure. They're undefeated, and they could be one of 3 undefeated teams in all of FBS. Utah dropped their first game. They got killed against USC this week. Florida State suffered a heartbreaking loss, and it could be right. And, I mean, especially you never know. Michigan's a dark horse. They could slide in and beat Ohio State. Ohio State looked beautiful against Rutgers, though, on the road on Saturday night. But Ohio State's a good team. Michigan State's a good team. Michigan's a better team. And then you have Northwestern and Iowa are still in the mix. But I think if you go undefeated, you got to be considered. Absolutely. Let's move on to a team who's not undefeated, but a team who's number 1 in my heart, the Detroit Red Wings. They had their Western Canada trip this past week and weekend, and they finished an even record of 1-1-1. Regulation win, loss, and an overtime loss as well. Great comeback win against the Vancouver Canucks on Saturday night. In overtime, they're down 2-0 in the third period when Teemu Pulkkinen scores to make it 2-1. Okay, now we're talking. They're getting brutally outshot like they have been all season long. And third period was no different until they righted the ship. Thomas Tatar comes in with one of the best celebrations from the heart that I've seen this year with the double fist dragging against the ground. It was great. 2-2, now we got a game. We're going to overtime, right? Peter Mrazek with one of the best assists you'll see from a goalie. Comes out, cuts off the player, I believe it was Radim Verbata from Vancouver, cuts him off, fires it up to the blue line. Gus Nyquist is pretty much in the clear for a breakaway, and he does just what his name is, Snipequist, far side, just like that. The Red Wings win. Mrazek down, celebrating hard, and it was probably a much more peaceful flight back to Detroit on Saturday night.
Yeah, it was a good confidence builder, especially with how the game was going early on. They were getting outshot in the power plays. They're 0 for 3 in the power play also. And it just, it's a young team. We are unfortunately dealing with injuries right now too, especially some of our key players. But, I've read today that Pavel Datsyuk was skating in practice again. So that's hopeful. As far as Johan Franzen, I don't know. It's probably he's gone. So with Brad Richards being hurt, Mike Green, Kyle Quincy, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it was a real confidence booster, I feel, with that last game, winning in overtime. Considering that we lost the night before to Calgary. Yes, and that's a pretty talented team, Vancouver. So yeah, hopefully that's a confidence booster, and they'll be able to turn things around, right the ship right against the Canes on Tuesday.
Yeah, it was really a heartbreaking loss Friday night against Calgary. Game that they were up 2-1. It was a back-and-forth game, at least in the first period. And they just let that game get away. Did not play well at all in the third period. They're playing good for periods at a time, but they really haven't put together a full 60-minute game yet this year. You could argue that the opening night game against Toronto, I disagree because after the first 2 periods, they were just kind of lackadaisical in that game. But I really think that salvaging a full 2 points in a game was important for them because they were really in a tailspin. They lost 4 straight games. They had to get 2 points, and they did. I know it's early in the game, or in the year rather, but every point counts at this point because when you get to April, teams are missing the playoffs by 1 point, and it comes back to the beginning of the season. And these games that the Red Wings couldn't finish, hopefully they're starting to turn around. Obviously, you mentioned injuries. Mike Green got rocked behind the net in the game on Friday night against Calgary. He did not return. Kyle Quincy took a high shoulder to the head. He's going under concussion protocol right now. Not sure how long he's going to be out. And obviously Brad Richards out with a back injury. Not sure about him either. They're all listed right now at day-to-day.
Right.
So that's at least a good sign. No one's been put on IR as of yet. Alexei Marchenko was called up for the game Saturday. because they were without two defensemen, Kyle Quincy, obviously Mike Green, and insert Brendan Smith into the lineup, scores a goal in his first game Friday against Calgary. Jakob Kindl plays again on Saturday, along with Marchenko. And one point that I like to point out that really excited me about Jeff Blashill was Jonathan Ericsson was demoted to the third pair. That was very nice to see. On Friday, they moved Jonathan Ericsson to the third pair with Brendan Smith, and I really like that because Jonathan Ericsson has not been playing good hockey this year. He's getting burned. He's standing still. He's not clearing guys out in front of the net, and he's just really looks sluggish and slow, and I feel that with him playing the way he's playing, he's not a top pair defenseman. We mentioned that last week on the show. And Jeff Blashill must have seen and said, yo, the wrap-up boys got it right. We're moving him down to the third pair. He played on a pair with Brendan Smith, like I mentioned. Then you get Quincy and DeKeyser back together because Mike Green was out. But actually in the game, he started on the top pair with Cronwall before he dropped out. And that needed to be your top pair. Nick Cronwall and Mike Green. Two veteran defensemen, one right-handed, one left-handed, and they got Mike Green back on that power play for the short time that he was in the game, and that really looked good. He was the right-handed quarterback on that power play, and they struck twice early in the first period on Friday. The power play's turning around. They had another power play goal. Saturday, Tomas Tatar's goal was on the power play. And in their losing streak up until Friday, they were 0 for 11 on the power play. Now they're up over 60%, at least in the last two games. So it's good to see. Special teams is huge, and Blash will stress that in practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said earlier, with these points, even early in the season, look at last year's playoff run, how close that was all the way up until the end. To be knocking out these early wins is huge. Get some solid ones, but like you said, with the injuries, we definitely have to make a rebound. But hopefully they're bouncing back from it. And I like that Blashill's actually not afraid to mix things up. He's called them out. He's not being reserved. And that's huge too.
And when Pavel Datsyuk comes back, they're looking at the second week of November now. Like you said today, he went halfway through team practice before leaving the ice with no setbacks, no problems. Just think about it. When he comes back into the lineup, you're likely going to move Dylan Larkin back up to that top line with Justin Abdelkader and Henrik Zetterberg. He's moved down because Brad Richards obviously has been hurt, so they had to put someone in that number 2 center slot. Pavel Datsyuk's going to become that number 2 center. And he's likely going to be on a line with Gustav Nyquist and Thomas Tatar. That's your second line.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's better than most teams' first lines. Yeah. And then likely Brad Richards, when he comes back, will center the third line with maybe a Darren Helm or a Timu Pulkkinen of that kind. Fourth line, Glendening, Miller, and probably a Riley Sheahan. You might flip-flop him with Pulkkinen, whatnot, but that's depth, and that's good depth. And now you just need consistent play from your defense. Obviously, goaltending has not been a problem this year. Both Jimmy Howard and Peter Mrazek have been absolutely brilliant this year. Both save percentage over .930. That's really good, but they're just facing too many shots, and the Red Wings have to figure out a way to limit the shots and the quality scoring chances. They're averaging 36.7 shots against per game, and that is by far number 1 in the NHL. And that's something that they've never done in the past 10 years, and that's average a lot of shots against. They were always averaging between 15 and 22 shots a game, and now they're upwards of 40, and their differential in shots for to shots against is like minus 12 shots right now. You're not going to win games when you're being outshot by 12 every game. Your goaltending, you're relying heavily on them, and that's fine, but they can't be tested this much.
Right. Yeah, especially this early. And thank God that they're actually producing and showing up. Had they not been producing, this could be a real dagger to the side and really mentally harm them. So that's huge. That definitely has to change if you guys want to progress to the postseason. I know it's a long way away, but you got to figure this out now while your record's still intact, while you still have a chance for the playoffs.
Yeah, it's still early. Obviously, I'm not worried at all. They're going to go through spurts of winning and losing, and 4-3-1. They're still sitting fairly pretty in their division, the Atlantic Division, but I really think that Jeff Blashill is the right voice for this team. There's a lot of youth, and there's future to come, like great future in the future. I'm saying future a lot, but it's so bright for this team, and that the time is now as well. They're not rebuilding anymore. I feel like that the team is here, minus a couple pieces, some tweaks here and there that you're going to have every year when guys leave and you replace them, but I think the core players are here. The Tatars, the Nyquist, the Shehans, obviously the elder players like Zetterberg and Datsyuk and Cronwall, but the evolution is there, and it's looking very bright. Dylan Larkin could be the next Steve Yzerman. I'm not going to get premature and say that, but it's possible. He could be the next Red Wing, the Red Wing. And that's very nice to see that the transition was so smooth with these young players coming in. A lot of people were saying for the last 3 years, oh, the Wings are done, the playoff streak's over. I don't think so. I don't think it's going to end, at least for the next 10 to 15 years, when these players are now entering their prime. And that's good. They're not even there yet. Nyquist is going to be a 30-goal scorer every year. Tatar's going to be upwards 25, 30 goals. Dylan Larkin, we don't know yet for sure, but it certainly looks good right now. And if you can continue to get production out of Justin Abdelkader and Milk, Zetterberg, and Datsuk for as long as possible, this is a bright team.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. The foundation's there, and we're now starting to build around it. And it seemed like we were waiting for a while, especially with all the talent that we had, in the mid to early 2000s. So, yeah, now that we're finally getting this team, the foundation back, you got a great leader in Jeff Blashill. That's huge.
It really is. And now they're back home from the Western Canada trip. They have Carolina again on Tuesday night, back at the Joe, and then a home-and-home with Ottawa Friday and Saturday. Friday at home, Saturday in Ottawa. Likely to see both goaltenders play in that home-and-home. Jeff Blashill has not announced who he's going to start yet. He probably won't announce till game day Tuesday. My guess, I think they're going to ride Peter Mrazek again and have Mrazek start Tuesday, go Jimmy Howard Friday, and back to Peter on Saturday. But you can't be sure. Both guys, it's a good problem to have, and it's going to be exciting to see them how it plays out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know what else is exciting? This edition of the Wrap-Up. Was it not exciting, Dan?
Absolutely.
Talking about your Detroit sports teams. I actually this weekend got a chance to go see 2 Western Michigan women's soccer games, and I'm finding a love for the game of soccer. Pinch me if it's a nightmare, but I'm liking the game. I've never been a soccer fan, but I'm liking the game. You'll look, and I'm like yelling on there, and I'm making sense, not just yelling like soccer. Like I know what
Ball,
I'm talking.
net.
Yeah, like I know, like keeper, not goalie. Football and corner, cross. I mean,
0-0 games, 0-0.
catch me on a word search, and I'm learning my soccer skills. They ended up picking up 2 wins too, 1-0 at Eastern, and 2-1 at Bowling Green, and they could be playing for a MAC championship in the very near future, as they're tied for first in their respective side of the MAC. So, very exciting to see some women's soccer.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
That's huge.
It's huge for me.
Yep.
For me to accept soccer. And
Yep.
enjoy it.
It takes a little bit to get used to, but
I'm used to it, and I'm ready to play. If you're looking for a team, you're looking at me, Cristiano Ronaldo Jr. right here.
Yeah.
But it's catching on. Alex Morgan, if you're watching, what's up? For Dan Myers, I'm Nick Buckler. Thanks for watching, Alex Morgan.